I now look to Ossian Ward to continue the case for the proposition side.
Okay. George Bush doesn't care about black people. These are the most important words that Kanye West, aka Yeezy, aka Mr. West, aka Pablo, aka the Louis Vuitton Don, depending on your preference, has ever said. On September the 2nd, 2006, during a telethon for Hurricane Katrina, he was presenting a segment with comedian Mike Myers, who stone-facedly read from the auto cue. With the breach of the 3 levees protecting New Orleans, the landscape of the city has changed dramatically, tragically, and perhaps irreversibly. Next, it's Kanye's turn to speak, but he goes radically off script with lines such as, "I hate the way they portray us in the media. If you see a black family, they're looting. You see a white family, it says they're looking for food." He goes on, "Red Cross is doing everything they can. We already realize a lot of people that could help are fighting another war right now," which is a coded thing about the Iraq War, obviously, "and they've given permission to go down and shoot us." Mike Myers looks panicked at this point, trying to get back on track before Kanye West pipes up again. George Bush doesn't care about black people. That's the equivalent of a mic drop. They cut the scene, switch to another person who also looks startled and a bit scared. So George W. described that as the lowest point of his presidency. And indeed, it was an outright attack, not just on him, but on an institutionally racist media and police force, both themes that have gone on to inform real grassroots movements 10 years later, such as Black Lives Matter, in the wake of the fatal shooting of Michael Brown and other tragic events. Don't get me started on Pepsi either. So while some people said that Kanye's statement, I don't know how they could say this, was mere publicity for his second album, and it certainly wasn't his most erudite turn of phrase, at least of all the top 10 most outrageous things Kanye West has said, it beats his gate-crashing awards, posing as Jesus, saying he's Shakespeare incarnate, but it was heartfelt. You could tell because he was nervous as hell. So this is the thread I'd like to tease out of honesty and positivity, rather than just his ability to court and control the media agenda. This is what elevates Kanye's influence and message beyond other figures in the public eye, and beyond even old Willie Shakespeare, aka the Bard, aka the upstart crow, aka the sweet swan of Avon, a bit like my honourable opponent. So, first, let me say why I'm here, mainly because I believe hip-hop to be the lingua franca of 20th and 21st century, and a force for current relevance and inspiration beyond even the great works of literature. Hip-hop artists and rappers are the inheritors of West African griots, of civil rights activists, tribal poets, of oral historians, town criers, and classical storytellers. These MCs, or masters of ceremonies, were born of resistance to oppression and were liberators of the spoken, politicized word, keepers of the flame of Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Maya Angelou, Gil Scott-Heron, and the last poets.
Warrior. I'm talking powerful
Cheers.
stuff.
It's no coincidence that Kanye's father was a Black Panther and that he grew up amid the consciousness of 1980s hip-hop, as I did, which ranged from the Black Power sentiments of X-Clan and Public Enemy to the Afrocentrism of Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, and Brand Nubian. Being neither Afrocentric or black myself, I nevertheless grew up in this positive reading of the culture. Of course, out of the more extreme edges of socially conscious hip-hop came militant and revolution rap in the 1990s, followed by gangster rap in the form of NWA, Ice-T, Kool G Rap, with all the attendant violence and misogyny that hip-hop is now routinely lambasted for, but which I would argue Kanye West is the antidote to, and yes, our savior from. Kanye is single-handedly responsible for bringing consciousness and universal relevance back to hip-hop, for making positivity, honesty, and political statements into mainstream music once again, or perhaps on this scale for the first time, not as a niche or outmoded concept. In turn, this has brought about a sea change in hip-hop with the rise of lyrical content in rappers led by Kendrick Lamar, in sheer popularity terms through someone like Drake, and in mainstream musical acceptance through Jay-Z and Kanye himself. Now, of course, there is still a darker side to hip-hop, but I would like to argue that Shakespeare is himself to blame for the ills of gangster rap. The latest incarnation of gangster rap, as you may or may not know, is trap music, which in current parlance refers to the selling of drugs, the trapping, and there is indeed a whole alternate language of slang around hip-hop, from the bando, the abandoned house where the drugs are sold to, the Skrilla, the Steez, Cray, Noided, and so on. Kanye might call this speaking Swag-Healy. Now, Shakespeare started this stretching of the English language, inventing his own words, which would form the backbone of gangster rap, like swagger, rap. He invented the words such as addiction, assassination, arch-villain, cold-blooded, scuffle, half-blooded, not to mention murder most foul. Among other Shakespearean additions to the English language, as I mentioned, half-blooded, and if we're talking current relevance, he would rate himself as something of a racist and misogynistic writer, from his depiction of Jews in Shylock's character to his Othello, the Moor of Venice. Shakespeare's least relevant and perhaps most misogynistic play is The Taming of the Shrew, which is essentially the tale of a lippy woman getting her just deserts for not conforming to her husband's every bidding. She's not even allowed to eat or sleep until she does, hence this passage. Such duty as the subject owes the prince, even such a woman oweth to her husband, and when she is forward, peevish, sullen, sour, and not obedient to his honest will, what is she but a foul contending rebel? Let us not forget that this is the writer whose collected works contain no less than 2 mentions of the word bitch, 7 mentions of booty, which wouldn't go down well with Mrs. West, aka Kim Kardashian, 116 murders, and 135 mentions of hoe, although the etymology is slightly different. Also, how relevant can Shakespeare be when he only once mentions Facebook in Macbeth? Your Face, my Thane, is a book where men will wreak strange matters. And worse than that, no mentions of Twitter or tweets. Kanye has 27 million followers. And sacrilegiously, there is only one paltry mention of Kanye himself in Henry IV. Give me my fan. What minion? Can ye not? Right. You may hear the argument tonight that Shakespeare would himself be a rapper or a slam poet were he around today, introducing cadence, iambic pentameter, or other meters to the kids. But no, he would be a tax-dodging property mogul or an estate agent, given how many homes he owned in north-south-east London. Anyway, what do we really know about Shakespeare and his lost years? Kanye we know everything about. He crosses boundaries into art, music, fashion, and who could be more relevant for our age of celebrity culture than someone so obsessed and so egotistical that, after all, it wasn't so long ago that Time magazine made you the person of the year. Kanye is, of course, on their most 100 important list. But let's face it, people spend more time contemplating themselves and their social media accounts than they do the classics. Not to diss Shakespeare further, but how relevant does he feel to the millions of school kids who are forced to study him on their curriculum? Schools, and especially theatres, are desperate to update him and make him seem relevant with their endless revivals and modern-day reimaginings, numerous Nazi versions of Richard III, Wild West stagings, Caribbean Island, post-nuclear Titus Andronicus. Need I go on? But why Kanye and not Kendrick or Jay-Z or someone else? Well, apart from the sheer media blanket coverage and his unassailable ego, it's his consistent output over the years and his consistency in bringing new genres of music into his oeuvre. He may not touch Shakespeare in terms of volume of writing just yet, but we don't need those infinite monkeys to recreate the works of Shakespeare. We now have artificial bots that can reproduce his works, just as Kanye is himself the subject of a new artificial intelligence program to create a rapping robot. Never mind the talk, Kanye's talent is prodigious. So, I would like to end with the words of the man himself from New Slaves. My mama was raised in an era when clean water was only served to the fairer skin. Doing clothes you would have thought I had helped, but they wasn't satisfied unless I picked the cotton myself. I know that we the new slaves, I see the blood on the leaves, they throw in hate at me, want me to stay at ease. F you and your corporation, you all can't control me. That's it.